Hello from the Dukascopy TV studio in Geneva. Alongside me to discuss current developments in the airline industry is Mr. Eric Kohn. He is Chairman, Managing Partner of Barron's Financial Services and investment banking company in Geneva and London. Mr. Kohn, welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much.
So we are talking about an industry that is rapidly changing, the airline industry. Who have become the major players in the European markets?
Well, the European market, one could say, has changed from being fairly competitive to three major groupings, which is the Lufthansa Group, which includes Swiss, Lufthansa, Austrian Airlines and SN Brussels Airlines. Then you have the IAG Group, which is British Airways and Iberia, together with a low-cost carrier, Welling. And then you have Air France KLM, which is Air France and KLM, and some various other subsidiaries. And they dominate the European market. The difficulty is that they are competing against people like EasyJet, and Ryanair recently have started being nicer to business passengers. But EasyJet offers a huge network around Europe, but no long haul. And with EasyJet now, you can reserve your seat. You can have early priority boarding. So they're becoming more like a business carrier. And what is interesting is that some of the larger groupings, like Lufthansa, IAG, and Air France KLM, offer you now cheaper tickets than EasyJet. It's really a challenge because in many ways there is less competition now than there was before. And the real competition comes on long haul, where the Middle Eastern carriers such as Emirates, Etihad and Qatar compete with the European majors. But they, especially Emirates, compete on quality of service and probably a little bit on cost. But it's a very, very competitive market now, and it's all down to the IT systems and the sales and marketing and the efficiency of the unit.
So let's talk about regional airlines. What actually impact do they have on the market, and what future do you see for them?
Well, the big carriers need feed to their major hubs. The problem with the feed is that, and what the tendency now is, that the regional carriers do not want to operate smaller aircraft. They will go down to a 100-seater aircraft, but smaller than a 100-seater is not very economical for them. And so what they're doing is either setting up a separate organization for a regional carrier, but generally under 100 seats, they're now contracting out the regional business. But their regional business is just delivering you to a hub. There are a lot of routes in Europe where the railways and the roads do not provide service, and you need regional carriers. But it's quite a difficult thing for a regional carrier to make money. And so because of the coalescence of carriers into groupings such as Lufthansa, KLM, Air France, and IAG, the regional carriers now have a much harder job, and it's very much a niche situation. So what's their future? Grim if they buy new aeroplanes, because the cost of operating of a new aeroplane is too high. If they operate depreciated aeroplanes and choose selective routes where there is an actual need for a carrier, then they should be able to make money.
So Etihad is offering regional airlines in Germany. Is this a market entry approach?
It bought Darwin and called it Etihad Regional. It has tried to be a regional carrier and has now reduced and is ending up becoming a feeder carrier for the Etihad group of airlines.
Let's talk about larger airlines. Do they have the right strategy when approaching customers and also delivering their services?
Some do, some don't. I would say the Lufthansa Group have decided to serve their three major hubs, Zurich, Frankfurt and Munich, directly. And if you're not flying into a hub, they're trying to encourage their passengers to use Eurowings and Germanwings, which are their so-called low-cost subsidiaries. But everyone knows they're Lufthansa, and the passengers actually want Lufthansa service. The fact they live in Hamburg, which has got more rich people than most cities in Germany, they're not very happy that they only get a Lufthansa service between Frankfurt and Munich to Hamburg. The British Airways grouping, the AIG, is slightly different. They've got British Airways and they've got Iberia, but they went out and bought a low-cost carrier, which they keep totally separate from the two major groupings, so there's no contamination. So Welling is owned by AIG, but it does its own operations and it's its own airline. Whereas everyone knows that Germanwings and Eurowings is part of Lufthansa and is not really separate. And it's very hard for an airline to create a low-cost airline or a economic airline, and I'll come around why I don't think the term low-cost is right, but an economic airline within a group because of the cross-contamination, and all you do is destroy your brand. In the case of Air France, KLM, they've tried to create HOP out of 3 regional airlines. They also have Transavia. There's total confusion in the brand. And you can't, it's just very difficult to run airlines and keep them low cost or economic, as I prefer the term, within a grouping if they haven't got the culture and it's been bought in.
So let's highlight these low-cost, or as you said, economic airlines. So what will be their role? And is there any difference between some low-cost carriers and full-service airlines?
Well, the real problem is the term low-cost is wrong, because all airlines should operate at a low cost. If you're a full-service carrier, your cost of operation, apart from food and various other things, should be just as low as a low-cost carrier. The problem is that when we talk about low-cost carriers, I'd rather use the term economic carriers. If you take EasyJet, they started from scratch with their new IT systems, no legacy, and therefore they will be able to build up a cost base which is more competitive. If you go to a legacy carrier, the problem you have is their IT systems are old, they have to renew them, and conceptually, the way of operating, the corporate culture does not let you operate in the simplified manner that these economic carriers use. So I think that the role is exactly the same, to transport people between two places. If you take Geneva, do you go TAP between Geneva and Lisbon, or do you go EasyJet? And I would turn around to say today people look at the timings and the price and they choose on that basis. The only difference is if you want to go business class, you would go on TAP, because then you have a seat next to you. Whereas if you go EasyJet, of course, you don't get fed. But if you look at pricing, sometimes the pricing of EasyJet's higher than TAP. So the role is very much to transport people. And it's a question of how strong the need is between 2 points. I don't think the role of the low-cost carriers, as you call them, or I call the economic carriers, is any different from a larger airline.
Eric Kohn from Barron's Financial Services, thank you very much for this interview and being here today.
Thank you for having me today.
And thanks for watching. Do make sure to keep clicking back on the Dukascopy TV website for latest updates and exclusive interviews. Have a great day and see you next time.